Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Malu Dumim in Israel. The phenomenon of deja vu is about as well known as the time of day. Everybody has had some deja vu experience. They are so common that they are hardly worth mentioning anymore. This doesn't mean that they're getting more common now. They've probably always been fairly widespread, but people didn't necessarily notice them as if they were something interesting. They were just a part of life, like colors and forgetting things. It is perhaps true that it is only relatively recently that deja vu experiences became something worth wondering about. How do they work? Are they nothing more than memories playing tricks on us? This is the most logical explanation, but there's no solid proof that it is true. Maybe they are real in some way, meaning that a feeling of having experienced something before the present is as real as the present. Maybe it is some quirk in time or some odd ability of the mind to reach beyond the present. Who knows? But they are fascinating, even if they have become a bit routine. While personal deja vu experiences are the normal kind that we are familiar with, there is another type of deja vu that is much more firmly embedded in solid science. This is what we can call a deja vu of history. An example of this is when history repeats itself in such an uncanny manner that we might swear that this has happened earlier with a different set of participants. The old history repeats itself line is about as common as the deja vu experience. The difference between them is that nobody gets impressed or shaken up by history repeating itself, and nobody has to look for any fancy explanations for it happening. It is simply an expected and accepted part of reality that history repeats itself. There are no tricks of memory and no weird glitches involving time. It is just the way things tend to happen. Why does history repeat itself in this way, and why isn't it remarkable? Because we are essentially the same people as those who lived earlier, so it makes sense that we will do the same things that they did. We have the same feelings and similar thoughts. Things play out in human interaction in much the same way, and nature, which is the real steady force behind all of this, has always worked the same. The only thing different is new technological development stimulating new modes of thought and new ways for things to play out. But it could very well be true that until the advent of genuine reality-changing AI stuff, we're going to go on repeating the same things our ancestors did. It's probably always been this way. There is no reason to believe otherwise. It is not difficult to imagine life in the caves or on the savannah being more or less the same thing day in and day out. But it is when we get into the domain of recorded history that we really see this clearly. It's pretty easy to get mixed up with the various wars and kingdoms of ancient times, since they all seem to be pretty much the same. Even in more modern history, things don't vary all that much. It is only at certain watershed moments, such as the creation of a new religion, that there is a break in this pattern of repetition. Those were the true events of destiny, when a new belief came upon the scene which forever altered the way a significant group of people would see reality. This week's Parsha is called Tetzaveh. That word means you shall command. It introduces a Parsha with an enormous amount of sameness. In fact, it is quite easy to feel while reading it that it's just rehashing the same thing. The subject of the Parsha is almost entirely the big day kahuna, the garments of the Kohanim, who officiated in the Mishkan and would wear them while performing their tasks. Almost the entire focus of this is on the garments of the Kohen Gadol, the role of Aaron, the brother of Moshe, who was in charge of the whole operation. These garments, admittedly, are quite elaborate. There's a lot of detail here, and it's pretty easy to lose track of what is really going on. But at the same time, it's not difficult to wonder why all this was necessary. There is nothing particularly profound or momentous going on. There are no great statements of eternal truth or epic encounters with God. It's just these garments, one after another. There is a long section about the procedure for inaugurating the Kohen Gadol, complete with a lot of offerings and very detailed descriptions about what to do when. But again, it is hard to really get one's head into all of this. It happens that this week there is another short section that is read that is really what this particular Shabbat is known for. It is called Parashat Tetzaveh-Zachor, which means the section in Deuteronomy which begins with the word Zachor, remember. This is such a short parsha that it's strange to apply the name parsha to it, but this is what it is known as. It consists of a total of 3 verses, but it happens to be the only section of the Torah that is considered obligatory for everyone to hear at least once a year. What is so important about this little parsha? It deals with a particular commandment, which is actually 2 commandments that are, in a sense, flip sides of each other. The commandment is to, quote, remember what Amalek did to you on your way out of Egypt, when they encountered you on the way and you were tired and exhausted, and they cut off those lagging behind you, and they did not fear God. Therefore, when Hashem your God gives you rest from all of your enemies surrounding you in the land which Hashem your God is giving you as an inheritance, you must blot out the memory of Amalek from underneath the heavens. Do not forget. That is certainly dramatic. To give a little background, Amalek was an ancient tribal nation living in the southern part of what is now Israel. They were completely insignificant and would have remained so if they had not decided to attack the Israelites shortly after the Exodus began. This attack was described 4 parshas ago, and it itself is equally dramatic. This Amalek tribe came out of nowhere and attacked the Israelites at a place called Rephidim, which was probably somewhere in the southern Sinai Peninsula. Moshe had Joshua arrange the fighting force, which was the first time the Israelites ever had to do this. Moshe himself stood on a hill, perhaps directing things from above. The battle went back and forth, depending on, according to the text, how long Moshe was able to hold his hands up in the air. While this seems to be immaterial to the battle, it was a great source of inspiration to the Israelites who were fighting. When Moshe began to get tired, the people with him sat him on a large stone and helped him hold his hands up. In the end, Joshua weakened the Amalek tribe, and the battle ended in a partial victory. This section concludes with the divine command to Moshe to write down in a text and repeat it to Joshua that, quote, I, meaning Hashem, will blot out the memory of Amalek from underneath the heavens. The section concludes with some sort of divine oath that the war between Hashem and Amalek will go on throughout the generations. It isn't clear why the Israelites didn't finish off the Amalekites right then and there. Whatever the reason, the fact that they remained to fight another day is what generated the promise of Hashem to blot them out, and the parallel commandment that we must blot out the memory of Amalek. Paralleling this is the commandment to remember and never forget what they did. This is a lot for such an insignificant ancient tribe. It's a good bet that if we didn't have this commandment to never forget them, and if this was not written in the Torah, nobody would have remembered this tribe at all. But there must be some reason why this tribe and this incident is so important, and why the Torah chooses to ensure that Amalek will never be forgotten, even though there's a commandment to blot out the memory of them. The reason is that they were the first to attack the Israelites, and they set the pattern throughout history, that the Israelites and then the Jews can and should be attacked. It is difficult to imagine these Amalek people really thinking that they were writing their names in biblical destiny with this minor skirmish. But such are the whims of history. We never know when something we do will somehow live on and change the course of history. But history repeats itself. Anti-Semitism is one of the great constants of human history. It is also one of the great ironies of human history. What caused this mysterious hatred that resulted in so much death and suffering? There is no perfect answer to this question, and it has confounded countless scholars of Jewish history. Despite all that the Israelites and the Jews have given the world keeps this ancient, inexplicable hatred alive, almost as if it were a sacred right. Jews have bent over backwards to attempt to get rid of it once and for all, but nothing they have done has helped. If anything, it only made matters worse. Along with the repetitions of history, Israel finds itself in the latest phase of what seems like a never-ending war movie. The war with the Palestinians has happened for so long that it seems to be a constant of modern history. Even this particular focus on Gaza seems like an endless cycle of repeats. But here we find ourselves at what could be the conclusion of at least one phase of this endless war. Israel has the opportunity, both from a military and a political standpoint, of finally ending the power of Hamas in Gaza and perhaps granting a new beginning to that endlessly troubled small piece of land. The question is, will Israel make the best use of this opportunity? The parallels between Hamas and Amalek are too blatant to be ignored. Both attacked even though they had no chance of real victory. Both had the either deliberate or inadvertent attempt of demonstrating to others that this eternal battle has to be fought. Hamas had their small share of success, just as Amalek did. A strong leader was the inspiration to defeat Amalek, and it seems that a lot depends on that with Hamas. With both, the opportunity was there to blot them out. With Amalek, this wasn't done for some reason. The result was the commandments and the divine oath associated forever with Amalek. Is it too much of a stretch of the imagination to draw the conclusion that Hamas represents a chance to finish off what was left unfinished in the Torah? The commandment remains with us today, reminding us to never forget and to blot them out when we get the chance. Is this war and the possible outcome that is staring us right in the face a way of Hashem making good on that promise to blot out Amalek from under the heavens? Shabbat Shalom.